grief will come knocking whenever. Like, don't try and summon her earlier than she needs to be.
What do you think time actually does and doesn't do for
I
grief?
know sometimes just a tragedy is just a tragedy. Time doesn't heal, but it is your greatest teacher.
Do you feel like it makes people a little bit more driven at times, or can it make you more lost as well?
I'm never going to sit here and say that everything happens for a reason.
There's so many different versions of yourself through grief, and all you need to think about is the version of you that shows up today, and that's all it is. Welcome back to Too Young to Grieve, and today I'm joined by Amber Jeffries, founder of the Grief Gang and a very influential voice in the grief space. And with her platform, she creates community for those going through grief and just open up the conversation and dialogue around loss and grief, and just as we are trying to normalise it. So Amber, thank you so much for joining me
Luke,
today.
Thank you. I always find it so many intros. I'm just sat here like, and I do it as well. It's so funny being podcast to podcast and seeing it on the other side. But thank you, Luke. It's been really, really lovely to be here with you today, and it's so nice to like get out of the house, and actually do a podcast recording like in person, which is really nice.
No, it's so different. Like when I first started, obviously I was the same, recording on the laptop and things, and just being in the space, being able to talk to you about like what you do and grief in general is so powerful, and all we want to do is just talk about it, and that's why we do what we do. Exactly. And thank you again for being here so soon after your big retreat in Bali and the walks in Hampstead. And thanks for making the time.
Thank you. No, absolutely. I know, and it's been long overdue on my side of my terrible WhatsApp management, awful. But no, it's been a whirlwind couple of weeks, and events that I just think, how on earth has that transpired of something that was so tragic in my life that has arrived here, and I couldn't be happier.
Just on that, it was literally on my mind, like, how do you find balancing building this life, the career, the future, whilst as we all are still carrying the grief?
I think it's a great question, Nick. I think because I do what I do, and I've always, since 2019, but I guess particularly since 2023, like actually making Grief Gang my business and branching into it being my full 9 to 5 or 24/7, it's enabled me to manage my grief and to maintain it and be with it, because day in, day out, I wouldn't say day in, day out I'm talking explicitly about my grief, but I'm being in conversations, whether it's in the membership groups or the walks community, anything with the community. I'm in that conversation near enough daily. So whether I'm explicitly sharing about my grief or just hearing it, it's this daily maintenance. So I really do think when I kind of reflect about Grief Gang, like particularly the Bali trip just now, I think, God, I really don't know where I would be without Grief Gang, and or kind of not to put too much pressure on it, but in terms of through my loss and when I first started it, what my experience would have been like if I didn't have that community and kind of just that place to, back in the very early days, really be quite raw about my grief and what I was going through. And I still am now, but how I would have processed and managed and, past, present, and now looking to future my grief. So I really think they kind of both coexist together. That's how I'm able to maintain and manage and kind of look to the future with my grief, if that makes sense. I'm very lucky that I don't have to leave my grief at the door, like in my work environment, whereas like before, that was my experience when I was in sort of previous employment and I wasn't doing this full time. I would have to clock in and leave my grief at the door, and it was suffocating. So to now, in whatever space I'm curating or being part of, I can bring my whole self. I'm really, really fortunate. Fortunate.
And do you think it kind of highlights the power of just being able to talk about grief and the healing power in that in itself, basically?
Totally. I think, as we were just saying, sort of like off record about brain fart. just off record of kind of like, I think the misconception of talking about grief and sitting in it and being with it, that you're kind of regressing. And that's why I kind of feel so passionate about not only people being part of the community, but for myself, of that it's actually progressive, and that talking about our grief, I think society-wise, bigger picture, people think like you're just picking at that scab, you're opening up that wound continuously over and over again. But actually, I think no matter how you kind of look after your grief, whether it is through community support, therapy, other modes, it's actually tending to that wound. And as I say, I keep going back to the word maintenance of that. Grief is continuous maintenance and kind of talking about it, processing it. And we're always processing as we grow and we develop and we grow with our grief. There's always new chapters that will unearth new parts of our grief, which again need that maintenance. I often think kind of quite like image heavy and like visually. So I literally do like imagine like a wound on my arm and like it needs a gauze and it needs tending to. Sometimes it oozes, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just like a little bit of a bruising, but it needs constant maintenance. Yeah. So we're all around the houses with that question.
No, that was a really good description. I haven't really heard that one before.
I'm very like all the time in like the group circles and things like. One of the prompts I always like to bring is kind of, if there was an image, sound or metaphor to your grief, and it can be really fun and just creative. And I'm always like, I can see that. I love just kind of, in the very early days of my grief, I really imagined my grief to be like this big beast, this big kind of black furry mass. And that kind of, I've always kind of played with imagery to kind of really contextualize my grief, I'd say.
Yeah. And I think those type of things are so powerful. I think one of the ones that I always talk about is the glitter analogy, it being everywhere and at the start. Yeah. And like, I've seen that a lot now. And that one was like a fresh one to me. But I'm always open to hearing like different ones because it does, again, it just normalizes your grief hearing those type of things. Because it's just like, you're going to have a wound. You just need to keep sort of doing things. And like you say, it could be therapy, it could be community, it could be going for a walk, it could be anything. Absolutely. But the more that you tend to your grief, as you said, the more you can sort of understand it and move forward with it. Absolutely. Because like you said, it's always there. Yeah. It's just finding different ways that you can actually move forward with it in your life. Absolutely. Just going back to Grief Gang and everything that you do you feel like with that and with what you're doing, does grief, it differs from person to person, I always say that, but do you feel like it makes people a little bit more driven at times, or can it make you more lost as well?
Great question, Luke. Oh, I need to actually find like the proper study for it, but there is a study, I think in the US, and it said kind of particularly for children, bereaved of their parents, are some of the most successful people. And if you kind of like just be aware of, I don't know, maybe like your favorite athletes or your favorite celebrities, actors, I don't know, just like listen to one of their acceptance speeches or if they won something. Once you start noticing it, you can't stop. I found I'm just like always grief and death alert. I'm just like, I hear death and I'm like, me, hello, you want to chat? More times than most, you'll hear, thank you to my mum, my dad, whoever who has died. There's been a death. There's something. There's a catalyst moment, and you see these people that are incredible actors, athletes, prolific figures. And I've always found it so interesting. But there is a particular study, and maybe I'll try and dig it out and send it to you to pop in the show notes. But if anyone wants to listen, you'll just kind of do their own research. It's there. And when I kind of discovered that, I was like, yeah, checks out. Yeah. And I'd say, for me, back to kind of Grief Gang, like. But before Grief Gang, like my whole schooling education, I laughed the whole way through school. I didn't really care for it. I wouldn't have historically called myself a driven person. I'd say ambitious, but I didn't know what I was ambitious for. I went to, I was kind of, nothing really triggered me and made me go, like rocket up my bum and to go, let's go for this. And so I think then starting Grief Gang, and whenever I talk about the kind of origin stories of Grief Gang, people are like, oh, was it, it's really kind of lofty, lovely moment. I was like, to be really crass, I had diarrhea in Morocco. I was delirious and I just thought, fuck it, let's do this. It could be a laugh. Well, not be a laugh, but actually it was more of our desperation. I was desperate and I was like, I need to find at least one other person what it's like just to lose their mum, even if anyone, point blank. So my drive was through desperation, point blank. And as time's gone on and as it's grown, that drive, that strive has definitely strengthened, not only because I love it, but also a fundamental fact, and I'm so honest about it, of there is no safety net. And I think that is, I'm just going to talk to the experience of loss of a parent, but I know this is applicable for so many different loss experiences. But when you lose a parent, and particularly young, you do lose that safety net, not only just, physically, it can impact, your housing, your financial situation. You lose that physical safety net, but that metaphorical as well, that emotional, that holistical as well. And then like my dad is in my life and he's a great support. You just kind of have this awareness, oh, I have to keep going, because if I fall, maybe half of the net isn't actually connected. You know, like I've got my dad, he's one half of the net, but actually mum's not here. Who's going to catch me if I fall? And I say that, and I can hold both parts of it, of thinking it's deeply unhealthy at times, like deeply unhealthy, but deeply, and has catastrophically changed my life for the better. It's enabled me, I think, actually taking Grief Gang out of it, that had for me has been a great driving force to get up and go and create and fuel something and be part of something. But I think taking that aside, even when I think about the years before Grief Gang, the strive to keep living, even when I really didn't want to. So that was quite the confusing part of, like, I'd have this like strive just to get up and be like, right, I've got to live my life. Like, for my mum, like, she just dropped down dead, and like, I've got to do it. But like, really didn't want to do it. But there was still that's why I think like strive and drive and ambition, maybe taking ambition out of it, but drive. It's not like, you know, woo, I'm up out the bed, I'm going to do this, I love my life. Sometimes drive is really monotonous. Sometimes drive is really bleak, of just like, oh, another day, out of the bed, go to work, this and that. That's still drive, I feel. So, yeah, I've got an interesting relationship with like drive and ambition. I can really recognise, unhealthy maybe is a bit harsh, but kind of the more political parts of it, whilst also being able to go, it's fucking got me somewhere, and I've carved out a life that I really love for myself and get to do something that I love every single day and feel that I'm pretty good at. That's that drive that's got me there. So there's both, and as a lot in grief, I feel.
Yeah, that's such an interesting answer and covers so many aspects of it. But I think, as you touched upon at the start, is, you know, some of the most successful people and, you know, whatever success means to everyone.
Exactly,
but some of those people have, a lot of them have been through loss. And I think it's just how much it changes you can give you that little drive, like you say. But then there's also days where, you know, drive looks slightly different.
Totally.
And that's just grief, isn't it? You know, every day it
Absolutely.
shows up differently. But it's so interesting to hear how it has driven you on to do this. And it changes our lives. But sometimes, you know, as you touched on, sometimes it can change it in ways that you wouldn't expect that would be good. And that's such a, I think, tough thing for people to even think about or hear, especially at the start. Like, 100%. I would never have thought that at the start of
my
grief.
God, yeah. And that's why I feel, and I love what you said, that kind of like success looks different. Everyone, I think, you know, taking aside, because I feel like whenever I talk about Grief Gang and kind of like what it's gone for me, I'm always like, this isn't saying go and start like a grief podcast and doing it. People thinking, okay, is that the only way to, and I'm like, it's not the way for everyone, and not at all. But in terms of, I think in grief, your relationship with success and what that truly means to you can be changed and chopped and changed all the time. So like, yes, I've got massive drive to build something and grow something that's bigger than me to hopefully change a lot of people's lives. But the successful part of that isn't the number metrics, the financial metrics of this. The success to me is, you know, for me personally, to be able to carve a life up for myself where I was actually thinking about it the other day, you know, look, my friend's just had a baby, and I'm able to, in the middle of my day, go and see her and support her. And I was like, that to me is success, that I can show up for someone in my village, in my life, and support them in this new transition in their life. Whereas before, like in my previous work environment, I would never been able to do that. Success for me is, going to Bali. Like, yes, going to Bali, but actually it wasn't about Bali. It was about being with those people and those experiences. So like, yes, there's a lot of drive behind me, a lot of ambition, but drive for a success that is a new narrative for me as well. But back to what you're saying of these things, you know, for people who are very early on in their grief, and sometimes even not like being early, just in really tough seasons, like to even like hear from people like you and I, or even seeing online of people carving out really good lives or being in a different part of their grief. It can feel, it's really hopeful. And I feel like my experience with people like that has been that they feel that I've symbolised a bit of hope for them. But oh God, if I think about the things that I say kind of now on the podcast and the community, if I tried to say that to like freshly bereaved me, I'd tell her to go fuck herself. I would tell her to go fuck herself. But then the part of me, I like to think a part of me would go, I'm going to hold on to that and see if she's actually right. And I would be because it does. And I think maybe when you're in early grief, you think when someone says, oh, the days get better and life gets good again and all those sort of things, I think we kind of hold, life gets, when those days come, they're just like the happier days that we once knew before. So like how joy used to feel within us. And then when you get there, you're actually like, oh no, joy feels different, but like joy is found in maybe really mundane things. So it's like joy comes again, but perhaps not how you previously knew it or recognized it. When you can, like, I find myself crying at just like the most silliest of things, but like in a happy way. And before my mum, I would never have been like that, of just feeling like quite like cracked open and like sensitive to the world. But yeah, I think joy in grief, and when those happier days comes and lighter days come, they look different from what we know. That doesn't mean they're not real.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that answer, because I think there's so many things that you touched on, but the biggest thing for me is just the hope side of it all. You know, like you said, it doesn't have to be early on, it can be in the tough seasons, but there are very tough seasons in grief, and you can think to yourself, like, what's the point? There's not much more for me. And that hope, that knowing there is, you know, a possibility that, you know, life can get better, and it can, and you can carry on, you can move forward with the grief. Understanding that those days are there for you is so important in this journey, because it can be so tough. But also I think the hope that you mentioned, and, you know, just by doing certain things, you know, for me, I haven't even told you this today, but you're one of the people that really helped me on my own journey, and also inspired me to do this. So it's really touching, Luke. Thank you. Just through doing something, you know, online and sharing your story can be so powerful for other people. But also, I just wanted to come back to it. It's not easy to do, to share, and to think that there can be time for you to move forward again with your grief, especially for people listening. It can be difficult to think that. And it can also be difficult to think, you know, how can I build something, or, you know, start a new job, or build my life up again without, you know, leaving that person behind. So in terms of a question for you on that, have been points where, you know, you've been building Grief Gang or doing things and thought, you know, you want to move forward with the grief again, but also potentially feel like you are leaving, you know, your mum behind or your people behind?
Oh god, yes, great. As soon as you said that, I literally got taken back to a really specific moment, and it's actually with my friend Poppy, who I in the intro, but my friend Poppy, who was one of my first friends that I made when starting Grief Gang in 2019, and we fast became, I guess, colleagues in the space, but fast discovered, there's a lot of things about us outside of grief that we really liked about each other, so we became fast friends. And Poppy was 10 years older than me, so that's just a little background there. And Poppy sadly died in 2023, the month that I started Grief Gang as a business. It was a wild time. It was a really wild time. It was, I look back at it and I smile now, not as if Poppy dying, but I look back and I remember that was a moment where I go, I remember at the end of that month, she died on the 29th of September. I remember thinking, I've just launched the part of the bit. I was made redundant from my job at the time. In the beginning of the month, I was like, okay, sod it. We're going all in. We're going chips in. I have to. Let's give it a go, as we were saying in the beginning. Poppy dies at the end of the month. And we're thinking, September next year, if I am somehow surviving doing this still, my God, that will be a feat. And near enough, I did 2 years later with it. But it was real trial by fire. But I would say that to kind of a point where a real specific moment where I felt, as I'm kind of growing, not only Grief Gang, but growing in myself, in my grief. But I really had to sit with the turmoil of, am I leaving them behind? And spoiler alert, jumping ahead, we don't, and I haven't. It's a evolving relationship still with our grief as well as our person. But it was October 2024, so a year and a little bit after Poppy's death. And I was staying at her mum's place and dog sitting. As they were in Mexico actually for Day of the Dead festival, which was really, really fun, which I'm going to this year, which I can't wait. Yes. And before Poppy had died, we had so much work that we did, and we had so much work that we were going to do together. One being that we were writing a book. We were in the middle of writing a book together. And as she was diagnosed, we had so many different iterations of what we then wanted it to be. And then she died, and I was like, wow, okay, I'm literally left with sort of chapters that we'd written together, and kind of, the real end chapter of like, she's gone, she's died. And went through real turmoil through that year of, do I pick the book up? How do I even write this book without my mate? And I'm now writing this book about her and she's died. Like, just the whole dystopian fact of that, and like being able to go in our shared Gmail account and see her work, just like really in a push and a pull of like, A, do I want to do this? And B, how do I do it? And I was really struggling with, how do I not only grow Grief Gang and continue to do the things, because the business part of Grief Gang had every intention to have Poppy in it as well once what we hoped would get better. So everything that I'm doing was meant to be a duo. It wasn't meant to be a solo. So really struggling with how did I find my voice and continue this work in a really authentic way whilst also feeling like I've lost a limb. And I was at her mum's, and it was like the day I was leaving, and she was messing with me while I was at this. She was like, honestly, Poppy was messing with me spiritually while I was there. On the one night, I think it was the night before this kind of meltdown had happened, a print just flew off the wall in the middle of the night. And I was like, I wasn't even scared, Luke. I was like, girl, I know it's you. Like, glass everywhere, the dogs running around. I was like, okay, I don't know what you're trying to tell me. You're trying to get my attention, but you've got my attention. So what do you want? What are you trying to tell me?
Yeah.
And just the next day, Luke, I had this I often use the word kind of like download. I'm quite spiritual, a bit woo-woo sometimes. Just like this download of like, and it really just felt like from her, but like almost an epiphany moment for myself of that. I think I was so scared of, I guess, feeling like letting again, back to my imagery is kind of, if I had one hand kind of like here in past and maybe with Poppy and kind of really holding on to who I was, both personally and professionally with her, and wanting to keep that version of me back to identity. I think everything goes back to identity. Wanting to hold on to that so much because I loved who I was when I was with her. I loved what she brought out of me. I loved we were together. And one hand kind of reaching out to this new version of me that is going to take not only what I individually want to do with Grief Gang, but everything that I want, and to see through everything that Poppy and I set out to do. So I just really feel like I was being split in half. And I just had this epiphany, kind of just this shedding, and I just felt like I really felt like her, but the confirmation of Poppy's in my coding, like she's in me. Yes, we're not blood family, but she has molded and shaped and inspired me and is part of me. So I can confidently let go of that version of me that did die with her and take with both hands this new version of me, because anything that I put my hand to, whether it's something that Poppy and I were going to do or just me singularly, that's fueled with her. You know, it's not a solo act. It's always not just solo. I've got all my loved ones kind of in anything I put my hand to, they are there within that. And it was just this really intense download, and just like, and I was weeping and weeping and weeping, like I've not cried for a really long time like that. But it was like a freeing moment. And that for me was a real penny drop moment. I kind of knew it already through the years of Grief Gang, but really solidified of, they are in everything that we do. I take them with everything that I do. It's not an actual possibility that I leave them behind. They are in everything I put my hand to, personally, professionally, just being me. They are within that. I am moulded and shaped and curated by them all. So how could I possibly ever leave them behind? And it was also this penny moment of just like, yeah, duh. But it was so painful, but so releasing. So yeah, that was just the one very distinctive moment where I felt, as I said, like I kind of knew that to my core anyway, but to really, yeah, like felt like spiritually of like, oh, I was like, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
You know, they have shaped you. They are you. Anything you do, they are part of that. So yeah, I literally, the dog was walking around with me and I'm literally weeping, and she's now sadly passed, bless her, so she's with Poppy. But I just look at her, I was like, Fig, this all made sense. And just, yeah, so I firmly, yeah, that's my kind of ethos of what I really live by, of that. Anything I do, they are in it. Yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing that story. Honestly, it's so powerful. And I think it's so important as well for people to hear that. Just that summary that you said there, you know, like that realization just showed to you that whatever you do, whatever you build, whatever anyone is trying to move forward again with, they will always be there with you. No matter what, they will always be there. Yes, they might not be here physically, but they are there within you, and they're there in everything that you do.
I think like I know the like ethos of, they are within you, can feel really lofty. Can feel really lofty and being like, well, they're fucking not. Like, you know, like when you're on the really tough days. But it's more than just being like, oh, they're always with you or within you. Like, that's the blanket statement. But like, if you really like strip yourself down bare and all the things that make you you, if you try to like follow, like, you know, get to the root of where that was, say, I don't know, why you love the favorite, like for me, I love red now. Red is so much, I'm not looking today, like red is in, I know I've got red nails, but red is always in my wardrobe, always on my nails, stuff like that. And kind of you start combing it back and you're like, where did that start from? More times than most, got nothing to do with you. You've never had an original idea or concept about yourself. Like, we are all patchwork things of the people who have either left us or a part of our lives. We are all, and that's not to say we're like all unoriginal, but we're kind of not in a way. We are all made of all these wonderful, lovely, inspiring things about people that we love and we allow into our lives. So that's when I think of like my deep love for like UK garage. That's Poppy, and that part of my brother too. But like all these different things, I think, God, why do I love that or enjoy that or relate to that so much? And you strip it back and you go, oh yeah, that's my mum, that's my dad, that's my this, my that. And that to me is the definition of they are within you. Like all these things, that's why I use the word, they're in your coding. Like when you strip back, it's more than just DNA, it's in your actual coding of, oh, that came from them, they tweaked that bit, they added that bit. We're all a patchwork make of all our people that have been in our lives.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good way to put it, because like you say, you hear that they're within you, they're always with us, and it can sound, like you say, just a bit like, well, what do you actually mean by like that? That's very broad, there's not much to that. But even like you said, they're like colours. Like an example, the Too Young to Grieve logo is, I'm colourblind, but I think it's blue and white. My dad was a Tottenham fan, blue and white colours. So colours. It's there, and sometimes you don't even realise it, but a lot of the things that you do or say or how you react or what you want to go and chase, it comes from them.
It comes from somewhere.
And that is such a good thing for people to hear, because they might not realise it yet, and people will say they're within you and this and that, but if you do just take a step back and think, oh, that's why I like this, that's why I do that, that's why I listen to these type of songs. And that can be really helpful for people to sort of hear. So yeah, thank you for that. And I'm sure that a lot of people will appreciate that as well. Just on that then, like, do you feel like, it's such a weird thing to say, but do you feel like there's a little bit of tension between we never wanted what happened to happen, but then also recognising that it has shaped so many important parts of your life?
Oh, is it kind of like like the everything happened for a reason kind of trope?
Yeah.
Do you know what it is, Luke? I'm never going to sit here and say that everything happens for a reason. And do you know what? I'm still kind of figuring out what my sentence or kind of what my phrasing is around it, because I'm with you on the tension of, I just wrote about it yesterday, kind of on Grief Game. We were in a group circle and I was talking about how I really didn't like myself once upon a time. Like I really didn't like myself. I didn't like how grief was moulding me and shaping me. And I went through this real journey of like, I fucking hate myself. And kind of, I can now look back on those versions of myself and those experiences with a lot more softness and a lot more understanding in terms of, oh yes, I perhaps had to cut ties with that relationship because that activated what in me, or I can see the reason as to why that terminated. In terms of like the events that have happened, like losing my mum, losing Poppy, I guess I don't believe in that everything happens for a reason. And as I say, I'm still trying to figure out what I guess my phrasing or real true understanding of it is. But I accept that everything has happened in my life to lead me to this point. I think I always say I'm exactly where I'm meant to be right now in this moment. Yes, the tension of, of course, do I wish that one of my best friends, my mum, didn't die? Yes, of course. But I don't have control in that in life. So yeah, it's funny you've asked that, because it's been something that's been on my mind at the moment quite a while, and kind of I don't subscribe to that everything happens for a reason. And I know that can be really triggering and really awful to hear when you're like, what, especially when, my mum was 51 and she was young when she died, but it was the natural order in life. Whereas like Poppy, like dying at 36, that was where I was like, there is no reasoning to this. Like, and what do you mean? Like her dad died, she started her own grief support community, and like, she's not invincible. Like what? Like you can get her too. So I can understand why that everything happens for a reason trope is really triggering. So I guess all to say, I'm still figuring that one out. I know the tension, because But I think for me, when I say this, acceptance, I think looks different on all of us. But I think for me, I accept the cards of my life. I can't not. How can we can't? We can't do anything about it. I accept the cards of my life and what I've been dealt. That's not to say I won't accept them lovingly or gracefully and whatnot. I will kick and scream about them sometimes, but as time goes on, for me, I felt there's been an acceptance of these are the cards that my life has dealt out for me.
Yeah.
And what do I want to do with them? And when I say what I want to do with them, it's not of like and what do I want, turn, shit into sugar, but in terms of what will this reveal to me? I think that's my thing. What will this reveal to me? And there's been it's 10 years for me in June since my mum died. I look back and I go, yeah, you've revealed yourself there. That event has revealed itself to me. Hindsight. Hindsight. Yeah.
And I agree. I don't think that, like you said, I think you ask anyone, they would obviously want their person back or their people back. And it's just, like you said, it's just sort of revealing things and showing things, and that's the path that you're now on.
Totally.
And I think it's more a fact of grief. You just move forward with it, and like you said, the cards that you've been dealt, there's nothing that we can do now, so we just try and move forward as best as we can. But yeah, it's not to say, like this has happened and look what I've built now because of it. It's just what you've had to sort of do and what's fell into your lap, essentially.
Exactly. Kind of like, for some people there will be more of a, I would say not grieving isn't intentional, but kind of people would say to me, like, what's your plan? I go, I don't have a plan. Kind of still don't, in a way. Just kind of every day is
Me and you both.
different. Just like figuring it out. And I think that's what's so fun about it. But I think back to kind of what you're saying in the top end of like the person I am today. Like I am who I am today because of everything that I've gone through. And I think like if you remove any sort of, link in the chain, it affects it. And I feel like I wouldn't. I've had to experience all of these things. I kind of in a weird way do feel like I am almost going back to saying that everything's for a reason. Like I'm not, but I feel like there needs another phrase for that. And I need to figure out what the other phrase is. But I really do understand that all the versions of me or what she's been through, how she has reacted, how she's adapted, how she hasn't adapted, have all been necessary for me to arrive today. And I'll say that in probably 10 years of all the different versions of me. So, yeah, I'm up for the revealing of, and again, I don't want to say lessons because I don't think there is lessons in everything. I feel like that can be quite a big thing too in grief of like, what's the lesson here? And I'm like, it doesn't have to be in a lesson. Sometimes something can just reveal itself and be like, oh, okay. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a lesson there. But yeah, I accept who I have been, who I am, and who I will go on to be, and how grief plays its part in that.
Yeah, I completely agree. A close friend of mine, Shane, was on the podcast the other week and summarised literally what you're saying brilliantly, that there's so many different versions of yourself through grief, and all you need to think about is the version of you that shows up today. And that's all it is, there's so many different parts of grief, so many different things we experience, but there's not necessarily lessons.
Stewing on that past one or the future version of you, the version of you that's here and now.
And that's pretty much it. Like I say, there's no... I'm the same, I don't think like what was the lesson that my dad passing taught me. Like there's not a lesson to this, it's happened, and
sometimes a tragedy is just a tragedy. I mean, Poppy's mum said that. It's actually before Poppy had died a long time ago, and I think we almost maybe even a conversation similar about this of like everything's for a reason, this and that. And she was like, sometimes just a tragedy is just a tragedy. And I've always stuck with that of, I guess kind of almost like my counteract thing to everything for a reason. Like it's maybe not in one of the same house, but I often say to people and for myself, I'm like, my mum dying and Poppy dying and all my other loved ones dying will always be a sad thing. I'm not trying to get myself to a place where I can go, yeah, I'm okay with the fact my mum died. I will never be okay with that and Poppy dying. So I kind of say like, that will always be a sad thing. That event will always be sad. It will never have another name, adjective, whatever to it. But I don't live a sad life.
Yeah.
And I think so much in grief, and what I really try and bring into any conversation in the community is both and, that there can be two things that are true, multiple things that are true at the same time. So I can say, God, but my mum dying will be the most devastating thing that's ever happened to me in my life, and I will still be sad. But when I think about it and the events that happened, always sad. But I live a happy life. those two things can coexist. And I think that's what in grief and society-wise really struggle with, of that we have a very binary mindset of good, bad, happy, sad, yes, no. And grief is really grey. Yeah. And that's okay. And that's actually, think, where it's like the good shit, where you can go, oh yeah, that will always be a sad thing, but I live a good life. I've carved a good life out for myself. Or, God, that's really painful, but I also really see the revelation, the lesson, the whatever in it. When you can allow like two things to just be without being like it has to be A or B, your shoulders just kind of drop and you go, yeah, all right.
Yeah, that's so big on getting across through the content, through the podcast. I'm so glad you touched upon it, and we touched upon it a lot in the last episode, that grief it can be a sad thing, it can be, but grief and joy can exist together. And that's one of the biggest things I want to get across, because I know there's times where we think, it's very hard and it's not going to get better, but there will be joy again. And those two, like you said, grief is a very grey area. It's not always happy, it's not always sad, and sometimes it's both together.
It's both together.
And that's okay.
Exactly.
That is okay.
And like grief can be joy. Like, and again, that is so wild to hear, depending where you are or what day you're having. But like grief can be joy. I think of like, again, back to Poppy. I think when I think about kind of how grief and joy living together, I really often lean on a lot of the experiences I've had with like Poppy and kind of her death and her community. So for example, again, last year, so it was her 2nd year anniversary, and Poppy's ashes are buried in this dinky little church in Devon, where her and her husband got married, and it's like where her mum grew up, so like very, very sentimental and to her childhood. So we all piled down there for the weekend of September, and her ashes were interned with the family on Friday. And we basically had a Poppy festival. So her mum like rented out this like campsite, big like yurts, fire, like proper hippie shit, proper hippie shit. And we danced into the night to like 4 a.m. But we have like I said very we were like got shrines for Poppy. Yeah. When Poppy died for her funeral, we made like these massive banners because she was an artist. It was joy, and we laughed, we danced, we cried, we had the best night. I bust up my ankle for weeks. I was like, I fucked my ankle because I was dancing so much. I was like, and that has stemmed through us all being together through the most painful thing of Poppy dying. We had so much joy. That's just one very standalone, but there can be so much in the minutiae of your day of just like, I think for me, again, maybe a big reach a little bit, but of grief has brought joy to me, like we said at the sort of earlier about, joy and feelings of joy and happiness can be in such smaller things than what we perhaps knew before. So like, again, I'll never forget a time I was just sat in my bedroom, and there's a children's park across from where we live, and I just heard the laughter of children, and it made me cry, but like happy, because I just thought that's so joyous. And so I thought, grief has like cracked me wide open sensitively, both in sad emotion, but also happiness as well. And like, that's grief.
No, it is, and it is the small things, like you just appreciate them a lot more. Even like you said, like the children laughing,
just so
things.
Sweet. I was just
so
like, that's
simple,
so sweet, and I was just like crying, not like probably, I was just like, that's really lovely.
And I think that's such a powerful part of grief. It does open your eyes to what life can hold, and the small things that like, even when I walk in the mornings now and I'm just hearing like birds chirping and like nature,
song.
I'm like, before I would have just been on my phone scrolling, just walking,
AirPods
not paying any attention. And it's just how much it opens your heart up to small little things, I think, is such a powerful part of grief.
It makes you open your arms up, and like, I think that's the part too in grief that I would really want anyone to know, is like, when I think when you can go through something so devastating and losing someone and something that you love so much, I think your natural instinct is to want to go in and to shut off to the world, to not get hurt again. So understandable. It's almost, animalistic and primitive, what we should actually do. Something's been taken, I'm feeling hurt, cower in. But to actively do it, like even scared, to go, actually, do you know what, I'm going to go like this actually and open up to the world, whether it is to people, relationships, experiences, whatever. It's a really brave thing to do. It's a bit of like, I know you're going to hurt me again, world. I know you're going to hurt me again. I know you're probably going to take someone else that you love from me, like I love again. There's going to be more hardships in my life, but you know what? That's my social contract of being a human being. and it's hard, and sometimes we want to go back in and we come in and out of that. But to go, actually, world, I take all of you in, both your beauty and your pain that you will give me. I'm up for it. I'm up for it, because that is a human experience. Like we can't. I know. Most definitely after Poppy died, I really wanted to just recluse, and especially from my friends, because I thought, God, I can't lose any more people. Like, if I actively still maintain these relationships and stay close to these people, losing them, God, it's just agony. And I knew that was like my fight or flight's kind of kicking in. And I was like, that's no way to live, Amber, with everyone just like that, keeping them there. So I knew to kind of just come back into the world and go, actually, like, I know there'll be more painful things, whether people are dying, anything. That is the social contracting of life.
I think a lot of what we talked about today, including these things now, is so important, a message to get across, because we know ourselves, at certain points in our journeys, there were times where we did struggle a lot, and we wouldn't have imagined even saying what we've been saying today.
Oh God,
and
like I told her to go fuck herself.
Like grief and joy together is that's not a thing. But now, a bit later on in our journeys, we're not, we're never ever fully healed. That's not possible with grief. It's just grief is there. But there are parts where we can sort of experience these little things of joy again, and I think that's such an important message to get across. And it kind of reminded me of something I saw recently. I don't know if you came across it, but someone I actually had on the podcast, Max, he made a reel and he talked about how at this point in his journey through experiencing grief, he's now at a point where anything that he does or experiences, 75% of the time he's happy, but there's that 25% of the time where he is still sad and still grieving. Whether it's the sun shining, whether it's his new fitness coaching, whatever it is, there's always that balance. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I relate to it in some ways. I feel like the word that I use for that is there's always a melancholy, like when you're kind of like content, but like a little bit. I think sad for me is too far of a reach, but you just have this awareness of like, oh, they're not here to see this. Or even more of, like, oh, I wish I could share this with them. Or for me, I get like really existential and I'm like, I'm going to die one day and never see this again. Like really just a bit deep. Like I'm that friend that once we had a few drinks, I'm like, guys, we're all going to die. I love you all so much. They're like, Amber, chill the fuck out. And I'm like, I just love you all so much. Like so emotional all the time. Then getting rat ass. But I really understand that there is, and I hear it so much in the groups and the community, like there is this ceiling on kind of, I say ceiling on your joy, but there is kind of this cap that, or someone else described it as there's this like reserve in your brain or in your body that perhaps before loss you could access all of it, that full joy, that full happiness, that full elation, and now there is kind of that reserve is always tucked away. It's not accessible anymore. So you can get like the full 75, 80, whatever percentages you feel like I'm there. But there is always just a smidge that is tucked away, whether we, I think, purposely kind of lock it away. I do think there is parts on as we go, I'm not going to allow myself to feel the full experience. And some that I think just like, no, our body and our mind or whatever it is, you actually just can't go there anymore, because it does, whether immediately or in reflection after like a really lovely moment or experience, go, oh yeah, they're not here. I wish they were here with me. Thinking about your own existence as well. And it makes me, but then I say that, Luke, and then I think about, I guess again, what I'd really love to, I love what you said of, for those of us who maybe a bit further down the line or have different experiences and things that where we get to speak to a lot of people and learn a lot about grief to share with them, because it's never that we're the martyrs and we're the messiahs or anything like that. I literally said in a group last night and I was like, don't follow me in the woods, guys. I was like, I'll keep us all lost. I was like, but there are things that we have learned that it would be a disservice to not share with our fellow grievers and fellow man and woman to support them. And I say, what I'm about to say now is not again of being, I'm the Messiah and this could be your experience, but I got engaged last year in August, and for my whole life, so I've been my partner since we were 16, so we're 13 years this year, Christ.
Congratulations.
And it took him 12 to put a ring on though, Luke. Yeah, Joe, if you're watching, it's worth it though. And for my whole life, and after my mum had died, so me and my partner were together for 3 years when she died, I remember thinking, whenever that day comes, however it comes, that is going to be either A, just a really sad day, or B, hoping for just bittersweet. I just always knew that, or felt that I knew grief would always show up in that moment. And when it happened, it was just sweet. Luke. There was no bitterness to it. And in a weird way, I almost tried to drum it up a little bit and kind of thinking, oh, why is it not? And I thought, Amber, it's just joy here today. Like, just let that be that. And of course, as I was, again, wise enough, I say wise, I'm not saying again, I'm the Messiah, but like wise enough to know that, okay, if in this moment or the day surrounding it, it's not arrived, it could come in 6 months' time. It could be this. And lo and behold, like now as we're actually starting to plan our wedding, there's been little like pangs, but I wouldn't say complete waves, but little pangs where I go, oh, there you are. So I guess, I wanted for people, to kind of these moments where you think, oh, the 75% moments, that can be a lot of the time. But if there is a moment or experience in your life where you're like, I just feel 100% joy, happiness, contentness, don't feel that you have to like force and insert grief, because as I said, she will rock up when she wants to rock up, and don't worry, she will be on time. And there is possibility that some things in your life can just be sweet, and it can't be bittersweet, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that in that moment I didn't feel my mum and was like really in connection with her. I felt her in the sunshine, like I was really dialed in with her, but from a place of complete joy. Rather than just sadness. I remember literally just feeling like, Mum, he's finally done it, and just so happy. And I can, just like when we were looking at engagement rings years ago, like I shared with Poppy that like I really liked like an emerald. So like that was, I got my emerald, and I was like, oh, it just felt so much joy. And so I remember just thinking, oh wow, I thought for my whole life since Mum died that this moment would be really sad and bittersweet. And it's actually just sweet, and I'm gonna let that just be that. Yeah. And
I think that's it, isn't it? You can let some moments, you can let as many moments as you want, just be happy and joyful, and there's nothing wrong with experiencing
and
that.
even if it's the opposite of like, if there isn't, a moment where you think, oh, this should just be joy, and it is just total sadness, and just like let that be that. Like trying to force either into either camp when it's not warranted or needed, you're just trying to put a square peg in a round hole. And it
will show up as it shows
Trust
up.
me, like trust in grief that she will rock up whenever she wants to. That's what I always feel when people say like, oh, I've been having like a really good streak, or like I'm feeling really good and I'm feeling really bad about that, really bad. I would literally go and say, I'm like, babe, count your days, count your weeks, count your months. Who knows? There will be something, whether it is a massive, tsunami of grief, or something like, grief is always there. Don't worry about what she's doing. Like, worry about yourself right now and enjoy for now for what it is. Grief will come knocking whenever. Like, don't try and summon her earlier than she needs to be.
That's it. It just happens as it happens on this journey. And just to summarize that, I think a lot of people, throw out, time heals and things like, and sayings like that. But just to summarize what we've kind of been talking about, what do you think time actually does and doesn't do for grief?
I love the question like this. I feel I have got my phrase for this. Time doesn't heal, but it is your greatest teacher. I feel that, to me, almost back to like, that everything's for a reason, and kind of like, oh, like I kind of get it, but don't. For me, with the time as a healer, I found that is my sweet spot of time. It doesn't heal, and I've got a whole interesting relationship with the word like heal and being healed. As we said earlier, it's not really possible. Like, I actually think it's a very unrealistic goal, but that's a whole different podcast for another day. But doesn't mean we can't have healing moments, of course. But time doesn't heal, but it is your greatest teacher. I think everything in grief is information. Everything about what has worked for you and your support, what doesn't, how you view your grief, everything is data. Everything is data. Even if you don't have that kind of, I especially don't have a data mindset of like, oh, what is that? But everything is information. And so as time has gone on for me, it hasn't healed me. I have had healing moments, and I've healed healing aspects of my grief, or traumas, perhaps I'd say. But actually, it has been my greatest teacher. Again, back to hindsight, I've just, throughout the years of how many anniversaries I've had, birthdays, milestone moments, day-to-day moments. I was actually talking about it last night. I was like, time, the whole kind of like time as a healer aspect. You think of grief as a wave, and it comes in waves and whatnot. It's not that as time goes on, those waves stop. They continue all the time. But what you learn is, oh, I can hear that wave. That sounds like a big one. You know when to jump. You know when to dive through. You know when to just let it engulf you. That's with teaching of being in the waves, being on your boogie board, on your surfboard, and just going. So yeah, time is your greatest teacher.
Yeah. Wow. Honestly, like some of the stuff that you shared today, I can tell that you do the podcast because
You tell this for a living.
yeah, the explanations
Yeah.
on certain things have even opened my eyes to a lot
Oh,
of things, and I
thanks,
think
Luke.
it will be so helpful to so many people, and especially, you know, that last question just about healing, and the word
Yeah,
gets chucked about a
it
lot,
does.
but
Yeah.
you know, as you said, it's not about, you know, ever being fully healed and things like
Hmm.
that. It's just learning these certain
I think
things
it'd be
along the
boring to be
way.
fully healed.
Yeah.
It'd be boring. I think being fully healed is living your life like that. And I don't want to go like that. We want to live like
Yeah.
that. And it's like, okay, if you scorn me, if you show me something good, being healed sounds a bit boring to me.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, like I say, the perspectives that you shared today have been really insightful, and I really appreciate them.
Thank you,
And
Luke.
I have one more question for you, which I like to sort of finish with a signature Too Young to Grieve question. But for someone who is experiencing grief at the moment and is struggling quite hard with it, what is one thing that you would want them to know?
Oh, it's so hard. I think, oh, hold on. I always really go back to that. Hold on. I wish, yeah, if I could jump back in time to that young version of me and just say, hold on, and hold on to hope. So cliche, so lofty, but holding on to hope and things that maintain your hope, whether that is, yeah, engaging with other people who symbolise hope or are a marker for what the future can be like. Hold on to hope, because it is generally probably one thing you will always have.
Yeah.
Grief can take a lot from you, but if you can fight for not to take your hope, hold on to that, and that it does get better. And I say better, not saying easier, but like the days get lighter, they get more joyful,
Yeah.
and you will smile and laugh genuinely again one day.
Yeah.
Like you'll hear your laugh and you'll go, that's real, that's not fake, that's a real laugh. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Hold on to hope.
Yeah.
Definitely something that I can definitely vouch for. You know, just having those things, those little, whether it's faith, whether it's, you know, something that you're building, your friends, community,
Totally.
just having that little bit of hope just to keep going. And like you say, the days will get lighter.
Absolutely.
So that is a brilliant way to finish. And thank you so much again, Amber,
Luke,
for
it's
joining
been
me today.
lovely.
It has. It's been a brilliant
been really
conversation.
great.
I've really enjoyed it. And for anyone who doesn't know where to find yourself, where can they find you?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, the Grief Gang on Instagram. Got the Grief Gang tag everywhere. Got my website and the Grief Gang membership where you can come along. And we've got monthly support groups, workshops, really fun workshops, and just a growing, lovely, compassionate community open for all ages. Nearly all lost. It is for all lost groups, and yeah, we have a lot of fun while we're talking about the tough stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much,
Thank
Amber.
you,
And
Luke.
follow
Thank
Amber.
you so much.
See our communities, because yeah, everything that she said is absolutely brilliant, and it's like what you've shared today. So again, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Luke. You're a
And
star.
I appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next episode of Too Young to Grieve.